Great. Hi, everybody. Just want to welcome all of you to the Stigma Free Society's Facebook Live, YouTube Live event. Don't just survive and thrive with me, Daniel Toe. Here, I want to welcome Dr. Smita Nadu and Andrea Bell from Paper Clouds. I want to welcome them right away. But before we do that, I'm going to wait for a few more people to log on. And I always do that by just giving you my personal information. And whether you're watching this now or watching this later, it's always good to know that you can always contact me at this phone number, at Twitter, or on my blog or on my email at any time. If you want to ask questions about education or you want to ask questions about mental health, feel free to ask me these things at any time. I'm very, very open and available to talk to any of you. But also please know that while I am broadcasting for the Stigma Free Society, and I have to do a shout out to them because right now, currently, they are doing a student event for me at the Surrey School District. They're broadcasting on another YouTube channel right now. I was just there, and now I'm popping on here to broadcast for them. So we're broadcasting for each other, but their mental health toolkit is amazing. Andrew Paquette, who's the CEO, does great work advocating for mental health and wellness in our province. So please visit the Stigma Free Society's website and their Facebook page if you want more information. Now today we are so glad, and one of our Surrey School District partners, we're so glad to have Dr. Smita Nadu and Andrea Bell on to talk about sleep, mental health, raising kids. And you know, they are the founders, or I think Andrea used the word mompreneur of Paper Clouds, and I'm just gonna let them introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what Paper Clouds is. I'm gonna take this slide off because people don't need to see us in a picture when they can see us live. So here we go. Please just introduce yourselves, talk about Paper Clouds and what you're doing in schools right now, which is amazing work, I think, especially with the kindergartens, grades 1 and grade 2s. So go for it.
All right, Andrea.
Okay. Hi there, I'm Andrea.
Hi, and I'm Dr. Naidu. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And we are together Paper Clouds, which are co-creators of a wonderful, straightforward program designed to help children fully thrive and be engaged with their life, connecting the dots between sleep, learning, and mental health.
Yeah, we're really excited to be here and to be in partnership with the Surrey School District. So together we've put our heads and created a book that basically focuses on a really important pillar of health that's often missed, which is the importance of sleep. And we also expanded that to a curriculum for kindergarten to grade 2. So we can go on about it, but I think we'll get on to the questions as well.
Absolutely. And I just want to, why did you come up with this product? Because this will get into the mental health and wellness and digital devices, and we are all so reliant. I remember last May, and like March to June, my kids were on the screen every single day, looking at their school and things like that. And we're also reliant on Zoom calls. We're on the screen right now. But why did you come up with this product about, especially for younger kids, about sleep and having good habits for sleep, and how does that relate to the digital devices and how that affects sleep? And that's what your book is really about. But you know, as we journey down this pandemic road, I think it's important for parents and folks to know, you know, how screens and digital devices affect our sleep patterns and our lives.
I think the bottom line, by the way, that was a very big question, Daniel. My goodness.
Thank you. It's going to take up the whole half hour. Yeah.
You must have a PhD in just asking questions that are stacked and difficult to answer.
That is actually what my doctorate is in asking random questions. Yes.
I did think that. I'll probably start off by saying we're a very impact-focused kind of group where we really want to be able to work on mental health literacy in our communities in a very bite-sized and easy to metabolize fashion. And to link that to your question about, well, now more than ever, we're on our screens, I can attest to that. I mean, I have never suffered from migraines, and I certainly do have migraines now because I'm literally on my screen about 12 to 14 hours. And quite honestly, I think I work more now it being in mental health than I ever have. So our number of gone up 1.5 times with regards to anxiety, ADHD, and aggression, along with behavioral issues when parents try to limit screen time. So to answer your question, I think that this more than ever, sleep health is probably really important time to discuss why it's a pillar of health and how it actually links not only to brain health, but also behavioral health and growth in children.
And I think as well, to circle back, I know being a mom of 3 is everybody's coping, I think, more than we did before. Yes, we'd like to all say that we're focusing on thriving, not just surviving, which you talk a lot about, Daniel. Yes. But the reality is everyone's doing the best they can, because all of the boundaries, there's a lot of gray areas right now with COVID. People are maxed, people are exhausted. It's been over a year now. And what Smita and I realized very early is we created this beautiful 2-part book, which was fun. It was easy to understand. And it was for the family that had no previous knowledge. So kids were excited. They were pumped. They were enthusiastic. Parents were excited. That was good. But I think where education comes in is when we connected with you originally is in order to have a sustainable health model, which is what Smita deals a lot with in child psychiatry, is there needs to be that education component. And so in the school system, I mean, the reality is 70% of Canadian kids aren't getting the recommended amount of sleep. And I imagine that number is so much higher now. And that means they're unable to flourish mentally, emotionally, physically. And then they're arriving to school with teachers that are already doing above and beyond with all the cleaning protocols and so forth. So you get that combination, and then you also get the parents that are doing the best they can as well. So everybody's doing the best they can. And I think that sleep literacy is interesting because it's a stigma-free entry point to supporting your child, and it's teachable. So it's learnable, it's teachable. And if you learn one thing from the book or one thing from the Z-Power curriculum that shifts your family's perspective and allows your child to feel better, feel a little bit calmer, feel a little bit less anxiety, just feel like a better version of themselves in any capacity, even incremental, I think that's exponential. I think it's paramount. Any sort of wins that we can do in any shape or form right now, I think is paramount.
So let's get the Coles Notes version of your kids' book, and I really do. I'm not trying to sell this for you, and you never asked me to do this, but my kids love that book. I thank you for my free copy, and my kids love it. It's like on the bookshelf behind me, and they just really enjoyed reading it because it spoke to them. But here we have logged on some adults, and maybe in a more adult, medical way. How do screens close to a bedtime affect a kid's or even adults' sleep pattern? Because we're all doing that, right? Like I was just when we were in the pre-show, I was talking about how my wife's like into Outlander. She'll probably hate it that I say this because it's on Facebook, but she's into Outlander. She's watched all the seasons. She's waiting for the new season. I'm watching. My son's getting me to watch The Mandalorian, so if I know it, so I can tell him if it's scary or not, so he can watch it because he's 5 and he loves Star Wars. But a lot of times we're watching this stuff at night, and we're watching this before we go to sleep. And then we go to sleep. There's like a high number of cases of people falling asleep with burn marks because they've burned their phone on their face or the cords or whatever. Like we all do it. But how do screens affect sleep? I think people don't make that link, but maybe you can make that link for us.
Sure. So the reason why screen time actually affects your sleep is because of light. So there's 2 components. There's the light emission, and the second component is how activated you get when you're focused on material. So let's start with the light. So when you're watching your screen, tablet, whatever it might be, interestingly, that light goes through your eye, right, and hits the back of your eye, which is the retina. Now, a lot of people don't realize how sophisticated light is because it actually inhibits. When that light hits your retina, it actually inhibits a brain signal to release melatonin. And as for most of you on this call might know, melatonin induces our sleep. It helps us sleep. That's why we have over-the-counter melatonin to aid sleep when we're having difficulties. So what light actually does from a neurobiological level is it actually inhibits the secretion of melatonin. So that's one. The second issue is that people don't realize I love this one, Daniel, is when people, especially adults, I leave the TV on because I sleep better. I need white noise. And so it's the only way I can fall asleep. Sure. And their argument with me is it takes me 1 hour to fall asleep instead of 2 hours if I don't have that background noise. Well, here's the kicker. The kicker is that you're still watching, right? So a lot of people are still having CNN on the background, but they're still kind of watching it. It physiologically, if I had you linked to even your Fitbit, right, you'll realize that your heart rate might be going up at certain points when you're listening to certain things that activate you. You might be watching violence. You might even be watching a romantic movie that gives you really a really good feeling in the moment. But all of those types of behavioral I guess activation centers that happen actually affect the quality of your sleep. So the argument a lot of people will tell me is I'll fall asleep quicker and I feel I can sleep better. The scientific proof is that you might be able to fall asleep better and you might be getting the same amount of hours of sleep, but your quality of sleep goes down. So the two summaries, I guess, Cole's notes is, one, it inhibits, screen time inhibits melatonin secretion, and two, physiologically, you might be surprised that you're actually subconsciously feeling certain things and it's changing the physiology. So heart rate, blood pressure, you know, the amount that you perspire or sweat, those kinds of things can also be affected by screen time.
So is that like, then like just some people might argue with you or with us that blue light, if I turn off the blue light and make it like an orange light, then that won't be as bad, right? Like, or I wear blue light glasses. Like I have a pair of those as well. I have a pair of those on, right? Does that make it better, or, you know?
Yeah, the cold version is,
do stuff, right? So
again, the cold version summary is, sure, it'll help 50% of the way, because I just told you it does two streams, right? So one stream is on the retina and melatonin, the other stream is still behavioral activation. I don't know about you, but I've never heard of blue light mapping how we respond to imagery and information digitally. So it will help. I don't think that it helps overall quality of sleep in terms of the amount of REM that you get.
Okay. Well, Andrea, any additional comments? I know that you have 3 kids, and I know you try to follow your own practice, right? And what you
I'm very good at telling other people what to do, Daniel. It's just, and then my kids listen to teachers who I work with, but they don't listen to me. I think that like one of the biggest takeaways in our home has been the children's need to, and want to connect with their friends. So something new during the pandemic is my son has started playing Minecraft, right? Because then I think most families that had thrown that out the window and were like, no, video games, have gone, okay, let's try it, because there is less connecting. Sure, they see each other at school, but if they're in different cohorts or different classes, there isn't that same overlap. So interestingly enough, in our home is, we tried it and we realized, we wrote it on the board, is the nights that he was playing Minecraft for 45 minutes, he would be waking up in the middle of the night, mind is racing, and he couldn't sleep. So he would wake up the first few times and we didn't connect the dots, and then finally we realized, okay, it's activating your mind. So then we said, okay, you're only allowed to play it on the weekends. So for us, it's been sort of the fight with video games. It's our first exposure in the house with the 3 kids. And we've now decided, okay, Saturday and Sundays, you can play it for an hour in the afternoon, and there's no video, and there's no Minecraft during the week. So I think with video games, I know among us, Smita, you work with a lot of, I mean, Daniel, you know as well, there's kids want to connect with their friends. You know, they're not playing on soccer teams, they're not playing games. So that was a really interesting eye-opener for our family, is had to dabble in that a little bit, and it completely backfired through, you know, and then there's the friction, and then you kind of come to some sort of balance in the house. But I think that that circles back to everything that we're talking about, is you need to find what works for your family. I don't think extreme situations are going, you know, they're not necessarily going to work for everyone right now. Not everything's black or white. So
But are we perpetuating some levels? Because there's lots of stress in kids, right? My kids go to school full time, but my kids were early mask adopters. Probably because we made them. But they're early mask adopters. My sister-in-law is a teacher, also made some cool like Star Wars and Marvel masks and like art masks. So my kids wear them all the time and they love wearing them. But it's a stressful situation. They can't play as much with their friends. They can't have play days. We're not really a Roadblocks or Minecraft house online. There's a whole other reason why I don't let my grade 4 and kindergarten kids play online. That's another show unto itself because I did studies on that. And I'll probably let them go online a bit later when my daughter hits grade 5 or grade 6, right? And but it's a stressful time for the kids as well. And sometimes we use devices and whatever to appease them. But what advice do you have to give to parents whose kids are experiencing the stress? You work, it's probably your everyday, Dr. Nidu. Every day you're talking to families about how to make things more meaningful for your kids. Andrea, you talk about like what works for your family, but how much do we sway in what works for our family versus what's good and healthy for our kids? Because what might work for my family might not be completely healthy for my kids, and what's healthy for my kids may not be good for my family. Like how do we help parents bridge that gap?
Totally.
Well, I think the good news is we're all in this together and we're all learning together, whether we're teachers, parents, physicians, counselors. So that puts us all in a very unique position to learn from one another. But I think the most important thing to all agree with is that technology is not going anywhere. Video games are not going anywhere. Your kids are going to be absolutely marginalized if they're not engaging in those things, quite honestly, because 99.9% of the population, that's how they actually interact now. Yes, that is a big drastic difference perhaps from our generation, but that's the way it is. And I think the biggest number one thing is we need to adopt the fact that things are changing. I've met so many parents that have said, I just let my kid play 20 minutes. That's great. I think you deserve a medal for that, but that's not going to last, right? So sometimes having realistic expectations is important. So the way that I place it, I think, Daniel, you're absolutely right. I mean, I can go on about recommendations, and the recommendations from the pediatric guidelines are no more than 2 hours of screen time outside of what the child will use for their school or for work. So pleasure is 2 hours and 24 hours. And we know in Canada, our children, at least from the adolescent age of 8 all the way to 18, they're using almost 5 hours. So, and
wow, 5 hours a day.
Crazy.
The pandemic data has not come out yet, but it's starting to look like at least an extra hour on top of the national average. So 4 or 5 hours a day.
Sorry, the national average. Sorry. The national average, I've never seen these stats. The national average for screen time in a household for kids is 4 hours a day.
Yeah, that's normal. I mean, when you think about it, that includes TV, right? I mean, kids are going to watch.
Sorry, I know we're live, but that's like, so they're in school from like 8:30 to 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then most kids sleep what, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So you're telling me that on average, not everybody. So kids like come home and they're on a screen till they go to sleep. Is that what, like, that's the stat then?
Yeah, that's what happens.
Wow. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so shocked. Like I guess. Yeah,
because
and now
they're playing Minecraft for half an hour. They might be texting their friends on their phone.
Right.
That all adds up, right? So it's not just watching TV or playing a video game. It's also social media. But going back to
I just like, oh, that's a lot of media.
It is a lot. Yeah. It is a lot. You're not alone.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is setting a value system in the family. So if we know the guideline is 2 hours, right, and that might seem impossible, absolutely, for most families, if their child is using 6 hours of tech, let's say, the most important thing to do is come up with something that's feasible. You're not going to go with a teenager, a 15-year-old that's already doing 4 hours of tech and go down to 2. It's not going to happen. Yes. However, If you, for example, decrease the amount of time that they have their tech before bed, because as you know, the recommendation is 1 hour of no tech time before bedtime. I actually think that's pretty reasonable. I mean, pediatric guidelines actually say a little longer than that, which is 2 hours before bedtime. But I would say that if you can just decrease your teenagers' use by 10 minutes every week. So if they normally go to bed at midnight, because let's be honest, most teenagers aren't sleeping.
Yeah, midnight. My 8-year-old, 8 o'clock. But yeah, midnight for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So if they're normally sleeping at midnight, then the first goal would be, okay, well, can we have the phone or put the phone away at 11:50, and then next week 11:40 and 11, and that in itself is an increment that is both manageable, I think, for a teenager, but also it's not asking them to change an entire habit. You and I both know that as adults, trying a new habit is absolutely difficult. Forget about it. During a pandemic, we're in survival mode here.
That's
so
right.
a teenager to do that is like taking away their lifeline. So my main mode of action with families is not to judge what's happening. Everything is different in every family. We are under a lot of pressures where both parents have to often be working and working different hours. And also the children's schedules are a little bit all over the place, especially older kids in high school, because they can do a lot of online learning or, working more flexible hours. And what ends up happening is that their meal times, their snack times, everything gets shifted. So because of that, that also sets up your circadian rhythm to be a little off. So your eating and meal times, your entertainment times, your routine overall, there's many different factors. But I think the main thing that you can say to a family now is don't worry, just take a log of where you guys are at now and what would you like to see in a week and a week from there. And never use tech use as a punishment. That's the number one rule, I would say, that parents collide with their children is because you did this wrong, I'm going to take away 10 minutes from or 20 minutes from your recreational use. That's like saying, I'm not letting my child to socialize in our age generation. So I think we have to change the language a little bit, and there's ways of perhaps rewarding good behavior instead of punishing bad behavior.
And also, I think, Smita, I've heard you talk a little bit before about if there is the need to connect and there is the desire, say, to play video games, if one is not working, there are healthier choices out there. So I think, Daniel, you asked, okay, it's great because our family's coping, but at the end of the day, how much damage are we doing long term? So I feel through like the sleep education that we've been doing and all the work in mental health is, offering it, but maybe there's a healthier alternative. There's a healthier video game. There's a way that they can still go, from level 1 to level 2, but not necessarily with X, Y, and Z. So I think taking, like Smita said, is technology is not going anywhere. We can't take, if you introduce it, but there are ways to be flexible around that. And I think that we have to be kind to ourselves and remember that there are some other healthier options.
Yeah, and I think it's never too late to give kids parameters. So I'm not going to lie, when my wife's working at Royal Columbian Hospital, I always like to do a shout out to all the doctors and nurses and staff, X-ray techs, all of you who are at the hospitals working hard. I know, Smita, your husband does work as well in hospitals, and just thank you so much for your work. But when my wife's working and I'm making dinner and also trying to answer my texts from the school district at the same time, I'm not going to lie. I say, hey, kids, you can watch your show, watch Emily's Wonder Lab, watch Magic School Bus, whatever. You play Pac-Man. We bought a little arcade Pac-Man, play Pac-Man. But at this time, like X o'clock, or when I'm done doing this, then we turn it off, right? And I think if you give parameters ahead of time, kids are less likely to freak out Then if you say,
Totally.
yeah, just go on it, and they're like, oh, you got to stop now. And you're like, what? I'm in the middle of this, right? If you give proper parameters, your kids will understand. And I don't think it's ever too late. Some parents might be watching and say, oh, we've never given our kids parameters. It's too late. No, it's never too late. But like Dr. Nadu said, you can work backwards, right? Okay, today we're going to give a few more parameters because we're on the screen a lot. You're doing hybrid learning a lot. We just got to get off the screen sometimes and go outside. Then you give your kids parameters and reasons, and you do it with them. Like what I found, I often tell the story of my best thing ever was when I broke my Apple Watch because I look at my phone less because there's no more notifications. I never replaced it. Not just because I'm cheap, but I just never replaced it. And I think it's great because now I'm not waiting for my phone to go. And when I'm building Lego with my kids, I'm building Lego with my kids. And so when I'm on the screen less, my kids are on the screen less. It just that way as well, right?
That brings there's a really good point about what you were saying is that, you know, if you're going to implement these rules, they can't just be for one person in the family.
Yes.
It has to be a value system.
Everybody.
So that includes mom and dad, aunt and uncle, whoever's cohabitating with you guys. It's really important because otherwise it feels like punishment for the youth. So that's really important as well because we all have to learn. If we're going to learn a value system and an ethos that happens in your household, it absolutely has to be activated by everyone.
Yeah. Actually, one thing we don't like our kids doing, and we used to do it just because we wanted to have a conversation, but we don't like to have them watch stuff while they eat anymore. Because for one point in our lives, my wife and I are like, the only time we get to talk is while we eat. So let's let them watch something so we can talk, but it didn't work out very well because they always wanted to watch. So what I, again, tend to do is that I don't even watch the news. Like one of my favorite things when I was growing up, and even as an adult before kids, it's like to watch the news while I eat because I want to know what's going on in the world, right?
Yeah.
6 o'clock news. I love the 6 o'clock news. Doesn't matter what channel. I love it. But now I have like the global BC1 channel. I watch the news. I watch the 6 o'clock news at 7. Yeah, it's the same. Nothing else has happened really for an hour, right? And, I say that out loud to them. I am not watching. I will watch the 6 o'clock news at 7. Let's just eat together, right? And we found that works well. Again, doing it all together, right?
Yeah.
So as I told you, half an hour goes by in like that. So I don't know if of Andrea, Dr. Nadu, you have any closing comments. Again, I'm just going to go back to this slide so that people can see how to contact you. Oops, I got to go to the slide. This is how you contact the folks at Paper Clouds if you want a copy. This is on their website, so I didn't just post Andrea's private number or anything. Please definitely get their information. Contact them if you are watching, and or if you're an educator watching, or if you're a parent and you want a copy of their book, or you want to just, you know, contact them for whatever reason about sleep and sleep habits. Please do that. I do want to thank you for coming on, but please, any final comments before we go?
I would say one last comment would be the pandemic has definitely altered our routines, and whether you're an adult or a child. And I think just being really gentle with yourself and understanding that no matter where you're at right now with your sleep habits, your eating habits, your exercise habits, that's okay, right? It's been a really hard ride for everyone, whether or not you're on the front lines. And I think it's really being, one of the learning curves that I've had to learn along the way is really being gentle with yourself. So I encourage everyone just to be curious about where they're at right now, especially around their sleep habits and their child's sleep habits, and know that it's a very learnable and teachable thing, and that things can get better, because if your sleep is better, your behavior is better. And for a child that's still growing, their brain is still growing till 25, their neural connections are going to be better and the brain health will be better. So I think those are my closing remarks is stick with it and you'll see success.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think the final thing I would say is, you know, the analogy, if your cup of stress is full and it's almost to the very top, it doesn't take very much to push you over the edge. So I think, you know, leading by example, and like what Smita said, be kind to yourself. And, you know, our program is just growing. We're working with Daniel in the Surrey District. We're in 8 other school districts. So we're just getting started in sleep literacy. So we're here to grow with you guys as well. And if you have any questions, even if they're really, really small, feel free to reach out to us. And we're very excited about the work we're doing in education. So thank you, Daniel, and Stigma Free Society.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all of this will be broadcast on the Stigma Free Society's YouTube page, on the Facebook page, so you can watch it later, but also in the Surrey School District. And I want to thank the Stigma Free Society for letting me do that on the Surrey School District's mental health and wellness web YouTube channel as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Folks, please, Dr. Naidoo and Andrew, please stay on while I end, because people tend to disappear, and I can't thank you personally afterwards. But we are going to end our broadcast today. Again, if you have any questions or comments, I'm going to play my music. I always have trouble with the music. Woo! Yeah. But if you have any questions or comments, please contact me at the webpage, email address, phone number, Twitter. Happy to answer any of your questions. And thank you again, Dr. Naidoo and Andrea from paperclouds.ca for .ca, right? .ca?
Yes, .ca.
Yeah, .ca
yes.
for coming on the show. Tune in next time in a couple of weeks when I interview a secondary principal. That should be lots and lots of fun. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.